masturbates. That's something I think I could do. And of course you don't ever meet the man or see the man. You have to listen to them groan and say disgusting things, but I suppose those things are only disgusting if that's the way you're looking at it.
And action. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Unmixed Unmastered, episode 10. And it's a pretty special one because Swans is releasing a new album, like right now as we speak. And I decided to pick Swans for the episode because, it's coming out and we have to do it. And so someone here, Anna, which is a new guest here,
Okay.
is wanting to do soundtracks for the blind. Very interesting. And yeah, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Anna. Hi, I'm from the Philadelphia area. I run the music Twitter page Avantine Angst, and I'm currently studying to be an ethnomusicologist. And I am a
Mm.
big fan of the band Swans, and I'm just really endlessly fascinated with the direction that they've taken themselves in over the many, many decades that they've been around. So I just thought this was an especially interesting album that I would really like to come on and talk about just because I've been really, really fascinated with it lately.
Mm. And yeah, we also have Tako here, a
Is it
veteran.
green? Wait, can you okay. I think you can hear me because it's showing the green marker, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of did want to introduce myself because
Mhm.
I didn't properly do so during the Brian Eno episode. So,
Yep.
as you know, my name's Renee. I'm just a usual music enthusiast from Miami, Florida, who doesn't do much but buys band shirts all day and also collects vinyl records, I guess. And I also listen to music chronically. I run a Rate Your Music page. It's Taco2739 if you're curious. I love reviewing albums on there if anybody's curious to check.
Oh yeah. And yeah, so let's talk about this new Swans album. I know that you listened to it, Anna.
Yeah.
And yeah, like what do you have to say about it without
It
spoiling
was really
the
good. I was really blown away, honestly. It's definitely sort of a return to form to their trilogy, I'd say. I did like Leaving Meaning and The Beggar, but I really did kind of miss that edge and like the build up and that really big post-rock sound that The Seer, To Be Kind, and The Glowing Man had. So I thought that Birthing had that back, and it was just really, really powerful and strong and strange, and I was just really blown away.
I mean, I haven't heard the album for myself just yet.
I've heard the singles.
I'm planning to do that tonight. Maybe if I'm able to finish the Praxis discography. If anybody
Mm.
knows who those guys are, you're real for that. Um, but I could definitely tell by the song titles that this definitely felt like a return to the To Be Kind and the Seer sounds that from 10 years ago yonder. And I knew it's another intense album from the band. So
Yeah, and um just going into that, like this is gonna be, as Michael Gira says, this is gonna be the final foray into the all-consuming sound worlds that have been his obsession, I guess, for years. And yeah, so this is gonna be like the biggest like Swans album for now. And he's gonna be more low key and but still like be active in the music world, as you know. And yeah. You can buy it on Young God Records, and yeah, let's get on to Swans. Okay.
it's a bit of a bummer they're ending, I guess, relatively soon. Even after I found out about them a few years back, it's kind of sad to see these guys just kind of slipping away, if you will.
Mm. Yeah, and does someone want to introduce them for people that don't know?
Oh yeah, I can go. I can give like a little abridged history too, if you want.
Yeah,
Feel
I
free.
have some history here, so we can use that as well.
Oh,
And
good. Yeah. All right. So Swans, they are a band from New York, based in New York. They've been active since the early 1980s. They mainly focus on experimental rock, but they've also had a very, very long history, and they've dabbled in all sorts of genres, ranging from the early no wave scene in New York, where they got their start, to gothic and folk rock, all the way to experimental and ambient pieces.
hmm and then full on post rock as well.
And towards the later section. Yeah. And I feel like when you talk about Swans, you kind of have to talk about the certain eras that they were a part of. So
Exactly.
so this is the first section, the industrial slash no wave, where it's very intense and it feels very ugly when listening to stuff like, Filth. And like, yeah, what do you guys think about that era, the start?
Well, I think I should be the one to speak on this first because I am a very big fan of industrial, and I know for sure that Filth is my favorite Swans album
Mm,
because it has that raw aggression. It's not like Cop where it's a little bit too sludgy because sludge isn't really my kind of thing all the time, you know? And the same it's with what happened with sludge metal and stoner metal, I'm not too big on that stuff. And the same could be said about Cop. Greed and Holy Money sound very uncanny, but it only really works as just kind of background music, if you will. I was using it as background music when I was at a college bar a while back. That's how I went through these albums myself, actually, upon first listen. But Filth, it has that punk drive of the no wave bands, but takes it to just a crushing extreme in a way that you can't really find in other no wave bands, which are more on the chaotic or plain noisy side. Like say early Sonic Youth, they're more head
yeah.
tankering kind of noisy, if you will. Or I don't know, Lydia Lunch. She's a bit more minimalist when it comes to that. Or hell, if you know Lizzie Mercier de Clou, the mutant disco lady, that's like super cluster fucked, but still groovy dance punk no wave shit. Swans just goes straight into the deep end, actually, with Filth. And I'd say it's a very good representation of early industrial and how far no wave could really go. And hell, it even went on to become probably the biggest inspiration to Godflesh when they were recording Street Cleaner, an absolute classic industrial metal album from 1989.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, like no wave, there's a lot of different stuff. Like there's even like strings of jazz, James Chance and the Contortions. Very, very good.
I
Yeah,
still
their
need to
first
listen to
EP
them.
too, definitely. Those
Mm.
jazz influences.
Uh, I mean, I haven't heard that Contortions album by yet, but
Yeah, that one's really good. I like it.
yeah, I've heard lots of good things about it, even from Thurston Moore. I was reading his Sonic Life memoir a while back, and he did mention it a few times
Mm.
in those books. So
Yeah, and you met Thurston Moore, right?
yes, I did. Although I was not too enlightened about music back when I met him last year.
Mm. Yeah, and just another like fact, like a lot of recordings or like yeah, like some of the recordings on Soundtracks for the Blind came from like these early no wave albums that they put out. Like I'm pretty sure isn't Yum Yav Killers one of them?
Yeah, I
Yes,
believe that was a cover too, and it featured in Soundtracks for the Blind. Jarbo did her version of that too. It was definitely very strong no wave scene
Mm.
influence.
Yeah, and
yes.
do we have go ahead.
Yeah, to be honest, when I re-listened to Yum Yum Killers, this thing definitely it felt like a more twisted version of Annalisa by Public Image Limited. That same strong beat and but it's got more noise happening. And Jarbo just sounds like a witch on there.
Yeah. And speaking of, Jarbo, this goes into the next era, the more goth, neo folk type. And what do you guys think about that. I know that Jarbo like played a huge role or a key role in a lot of these albums, more so than in their no wave era. And yeah,
I
what do you
think
guys
Jarbo
think?
can definitely be credited with their change in sound. It was her and a lot of her creative influence that came in. I think really shook things up, both in Michael Gira's personal life and the band's creative direction. I really like Children of God. I think that's actually one of my favorite albums by them. It sort of goes into that like folk music direction for the first time, but it also retains a lot of like the very heavy, angry, and like aggressive music that characterized their starts in the no wave scene. So I thought that was really interesting. And of course, they continued even further in that direction with White Light in the Mouth of Infinity and Love of Life. And The Great Annihilator, which was a bit more gritty, I'd
Oh,
say too, but
and more
also really,
post-punk.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it felt like a combination of those two of the previous no wave era with the gothic undertones.
Yeah.
And the same thing could be said about Children of God. I can't believe we forgot to put in the Burning World on here though. No, no shame to you though. It's just that I think it's a very solid album, despite how much people kind of tend to shit on it a little bit. It's solid neo folk, let's say.
Yeah,
And
I
Mm,
don't mind that one either. I actually really like some of the songs from it. I think it's interesting too, like because when you consider like the history, Michael Gira, he got his first ever opportunity to sort of go mainstream with that, and he had been really kind of struggling in the music industry to get money to find commercial success. So I think he was looking forward to that opportunity, I remember reading.
mm.
it was definitely it's good, let's say, for a commercial change in direction because neo folk. Okay, what am I even saying at this point? All right, I can definitely see where Jiro was coming from. It wasn't gonna get far, but it still feels like a good direction, even if it was for commercialization purposes. Let's say that.
Mm.
And I think,
Yeah. Oh,
sorry
God.
to interrupt, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think by adding the post rock undertones starting on White Light, I think gave him a little bit more of a boost that just made Swans more of a household name, if anything.
Yeah, and so like yeah, like Jarbo. Let's introduce Jarbo here. And yeah, Jarbo is a the vocalist, also plays a little bit of keyboard. And like one important fact that plays like a key role in this in Soundtracks for the Blind is that her father was a FBI agent and self-described or described him as like a typical law enforcement man. And like a lot of these like tapes from Soundtracks for the Blind came from allegedly came from the the stash of tapes from the FBI. And yeah,
So that explains some of the some probably the I was a prisoner in your skull samples.
Yeah, that was
Probably
actually taken from I believe a man who was investigated by the FBI. I don't believe we know his identity, but I think that definitely makes it much more interesting and even a bit disturbing when you like consider the implications of why he was detained by the FBI and the context of what he's talking about there.
or what exactly he means by the three ways that you fucked up. That
Yeah.
also.
or yeah. Yeah, like have you guys listened to Jarbo's stuff?
Yeah, I've heard some of her solo stuff. I know that Volcano, for example, which is one of my favorite Swan songs, period, started off as a Jarbo solo track, which is also why it's so different from pretty much anything else in their catalog.
Mm. Because I know she was a like a collaborator for one of the Neurosis albums, I think.
That's what I was gonna say actually. I haven't heard it myself though, so
Yeah, and yeah, I know she also does video game stuff, like horror video game soundtracks. too. So which kind of makes sense. She's very scary. Yeah, and let's see what's next. Yeah, and you guys want to play a track
Yes,
here?
let's throw the song on.
And who chose Red Velvet Corridor? Or well, I mean we all did.
We
But do
all
we have
did, yeah. It was
But I think it
the
was your idea,
mutual
Anna.
favorite choice.
yeah,
Mhm.
so why this one?
I think as the opener, it definitely is sort of like iconic. Like when I think of soundtracks for the blind, I can like hear Red Velvet Corridor like in my head, like those fuzzy tones sort of. It's like a very, I think, deceptively comforting song too. Like it's very ambient, kind of like gets you started in that direction that they're going with this atmospheric piece, but at the same time, like it's really calm, like too calm for what the album is. So I think it's just interesting the way it like definitely demonstrates like the direction they're going, but at the same time, it kind of like it's like entering a new world almost when I hear it.
Hmm. See, when I listen to it, honestly, it feels really like scary. It feels like I'm entering into something that I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. It makes me
It's a
feel like
bit
I'm
funny.
like, I don't know, in sort of like a warm like blanket or something, but I don't know how to explain it. It's very, very weird, but also like comforting track to me. It's very
Mm.
intriguing.
Do you have any thoughts, Taco?
It's a bit foreboding, let's say, for an album opener.
Mm. All right,
Yeah.
you guys want to play it now?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. So we'll just play a little segment. Alrighty. Okay, let's go. Keep going. All right. So the original concept of soundtracks for the blind was supposed to be a soundtrack for a film that doesn't exist. And and it's weird because how does that like work out in the music? It's very like
Yeah.
confusing. Sort of because like when you make it a soundtrack, it's like supposed to be there's supposed to be like an idea like in like a Mission Impossible movie. It's supposed to be like a lot of suspense and like massive like climaxes. So yeah, like what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely really interesting. I was also sort of wondering what exactly he meant by that. But I think when you consider like how the album was made, like it was a very ambitious project just in terms of like what they did. Like first they were taking like a lot of old snippets and recordings from their old like no wave days. And then they were also like finding a bunch of field recordings and cassettes and doing all this sampling and like musique concrète type stuff. And then they were also, of course, like composing a lot of new material too. So when you think about like that diversity, I think it kind of makes more sense because like in the context of a film, like it's not like you have pieces that are all one source. Like you get a bunch of different material, you find different artists to do different things, you sample different music, you find different pieces to fit different moods. And I think this is a very like diverse album in terms of mood and origin. So I think that's kind of what he meant by that, like in terms of like how much music they have and like all these different moods that could kind of come together to create like one movie where you have one song for this scene, one song for this scene, and so on and so on.
Mm. Yeah, I always thought that since because this is supposed to be the last Swans album,
Yeah.
right? And I always felt like the the original idea was after like this was all compiled, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like, I guess like a dump of everything so that when, fans see this, like they will enjoy it for a long time
Yeah.
and won't get tired, right? And yeah, like Taka, what do you think about that or
Oh, well,
about the
personally, yeah. I personally like to think of it as just pieces of broken memories just being stitched together into an album that I guess chronicles a movie about life. And it sounds mysterious and foreboding in the way that life throws things at you with no expectations of them in a way. I
Mm.
feel like this album is relatable in some ways because of that. And going back to the Brian Eno episode,
Yes.
we're gonna it does kind of remind me of how Eno was able to construct ambient compositions for films like with Apollo. What he did on there was absolutely amazing, and in a way I feel like Gira and Jarbo were both, at least to some extent, influenced by how Eno pieced those pieces together, and
Mm.
at the very least felt some of his energy flowing through in the making of this album.
Yeah, and even in this like this Wikipedia part, he says that he was always inspired by Brian Eno's way of finding music through non-musical sources, like ambient 4, we talked about that, where it's all comprised of like these little like field recordings, little like frog sounds. So so yeah, like there's definitely a lot of I guess there's definitely a bridge there for Brian Eno and Swans.
Yeah. Also, I was thinking of Ambient 4 when I heard Red Velvet Corridor there.
Mm,
Was the whole field recordings thing. So
yeah. Ambient 4 is amazing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um yeah, so the way this was like sort of like done was they just threw it all into a computer and just like placed it in whatever order they wanted. They like cut crossfaded stuff and looped it. So I'm not sure if like in other like the older Swans tracks, I don't think they use like computer stuff or did
Yeah, no.
some.
Everything was mostly done through acoustics.
Mm,
So there
yeah.
wasn't really any programming or any drum machine use, if I
I
must be
think
honest.
there was drum machines in use, but
I'm
yeah.
not too sure. I feel I gotta re-listen and really check for drum machine use on the earlier albums before, but I really think that Volcano was probably the first Swan song to use it, like just properly use a drum machine the entire way through.
I do
Mm,
think the context of having like no acoustic is really interesting, or like being only acoustic, because when you compare it with like similar ambient works that like were going back then, like even some of Brian Eno stuff, and I think maybe like Selected Ambient Works Part 2, Aphex Twin, I think that's definitely
hmm.
like really interesting. Like they were really just doing this with sampling and acoustics and gathering old material, and they weren't like sitting down and even like making that much new stuff. Like it really was just sort of like I like to think of soundtracks as basically just a big collage album to me, and I think the ambient context makes that even more interesting.
Hell, I'd say it's a bit of a polar opposite to Music for Nitrous Oxide by Stars of the Lid. Those
Yeah.
guys just
Mm.
plain used only the instruments that they had on them, and they just let them drag on, and that was
Mm.
all they did. And that's the antithesis of what this album is trying to do with its form of drone.
Yeah, I've listened to one Stars for the Lid or of the Lid album, and yeah, it's very
Which
it's
one
not very
was it?
active.
Which one was it?
It
If
was
I
it was
And their
it's like
refinement of the decline.
it's the one
That's my
it's like the
favorite. That's a
orange
really good
one.
one.
It's the orange one. I don't know what the name is.
Oh, the tired sounds of Stars of the Lid.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one I guess they start using a little bit more editing there, and they also kind of use some neoclassical influence. Like they try using some classical instruments with those last two albums, but I think those are a little bit too bloated. But that's not something I want to get into right
Mm.
now. They started moving away from just going full on raw like their 90s material did. Say they really started transitioning with either Ballasted Orchestra or Avec Laudanum,
Mm.
or the collab album they did in between. I'm not too sure. I think it's Ballasted Orchestra. They really tried to started going that way.
I need to explore Stars of the Lid more. That's definitely one that always comes up in music discussions that I'm not familiar with that much.
They got some solid stuff. Definitely check out Avec Laudanum and their refinement of the decline.
All right,
It's a
yeah,
really good album.
I'll definitely do that. And yeah, so speaking of you know, uh what was I gonna say?
The interviews,
What's
the
up?
the interviews that they sampled.
Yes, yeah. This is one, and I think, I mean, we can explain it, but I think there doesn't really need to be one because it's probably one of the most important tracks on this. But do we have any justification for picking this one?
If not the second most important track on this album behind Helpless Child.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's really interesting and it kind of takes the sort of like foreboding, otherworldly direction of Red Velvet Corridor even more intense. Like, I think this one is very like ominous and scary and like especially with that weird voice that comes in the middle with like
Hmm.
the blah, 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 that like it's very weird. I remember the first time I heard like this, I knew I was in for a ride and then the way it just sort of like segues into that ominous ambient bit with the field recordings is also really interesting. It just totally sets the tone for the album in a sort of like complementary but very different way than Red Velvet.
Not to mention
Mm.
that last part of him talking about again the three ways that you fucked up. Yeah, it's become nearly iconic for many, I'd say, brain rotted music fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, you guys want to play it? Hold on, let me.
Let's roll it. Let's roll it.
And we're back. We're back. Yeah, we had some slight problems with Zoom. You have to upgrade apparently. But yeah, we're gonna play this section of we'll just play the whole thing honestly of I was a prisoner in your skull. Okay,
Yes.
let's do it. Okay.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Well, fuck. I mean, I just don't know what to say. Very glad to be here with you tonight. Be able to talk to you about some things that I know a great deal about. Everyone knows that you are fucked up. And everyone knows that I am fucked up. But does everyone know that you are more fucked up than me? Well, I know that. And you know that.
But our purpose is to tell everyone that. Take, for instance, the time you went to the bathroom to take a shower. You had soap, you had a towel, shampoo, washcloth, a brush. Everything was set. But you had to call me to come turn on the water for you. You didn't know where how. That is one instance of how fucked up you are. A second instance of how fucked up you are. You was going to cook you some breakfast. Well, you went in there and you put some toast in the toaster, put a skillet on the stove with some grease in it, and got you some eggs out and some bacon. Poured you some orange juice, made you some coffee, got some jelly and some butter, fried eggs, salt, pepper, got the bacon all ready. Everything was fine, except for one thing. You had to call me in there to show you how to use a fork. Now the third instance, the way you're fucked up. You got dressed, ready to go to school. Everything was fine. Went outside, got in your car, key in the ignition. Except for one thing. You had to call me to come show you.
All right.
You had to call me, come show you.
And then the end. Yeah. What are your guys' interpretations of that song? Because there's a lot that you can get from that one.
I've seen like all sorts of things about it, but I think it seems to kind of have a theme of like societal like issues. Definitely, like we have this man who's being detained by the FBI, and obviously this is a recording taken from Jarbo's father. And when you consider that, like he's speaking directly to the people interrogating him, so this context of like you are more fucked up than me sort of relates to like Swans' very early and constant themes of like authority and man versus man. Just these very, very like dark, kind of tense themes of like humanity fighting. And I think that's just a big theme throughout this album. Like there's a lot of discomfort and it delves into like the ugliness of humanity. And I think that's really interesting. And this is a great and bitter and strange way to open that up.
Yeah, I like that one. I actually haven't heard that. And yeah, I always thought it was like, because so it's either it's like two people and the guy's talking to this person that's like mentally regressed, or it's kind of like yourself in a way. Like he's so far gone that he's almost like talking to his brain. Like
Yeah,
so
right.
he can't keep up or something like that. And yeah, so it's a very, you know, dark song. It's also kind of funny a little bit. Like I always thought it was pretty funny, but
The sudden cut at the end is probably the funniest part. Like, I had to come show you, and then it just ends at there.
yeah, very.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like the whole thing, like you just like never know like what's gonna come next, like what he's gonna be talking about. And like the whole time, like the very first time I was listening to this, I was like, okay, like am I missing something? Because this is obviously taken like very out of context, and I think that's deliberate. Like you kind of don't know what he is talking about really. So like it just makes it all the weirder, and like you can really interpret it in so many ways.
Yeah, Wait, let me look at my notes. Yeah, like I um I don't have much to say. Do we have anything else to add?
Regarding what's on the slide right now, I'd say it's that part of the song was definitely it in a way it does kind of reflect Michael Gira's early fucked up life,
Mm.
as he was very heavily involved in drugs and gang crime, if I remember correctly, before he
Yeah.
got into music. Yeah. So in a way, it's it's sort of him calling out himself for what he did back then.
Mm.
Yeah. He spent his 16th birthday in Israeli prison,
Yeah.
and he fled to Germany
I did
with
see that.
his father because he was at risk of going to juvie, basically. Like, he also was a criminal, and he continued to commit some crime into his later life. So, like, when you consider that with this context of a man being, like, questioned by the FBI, in one of Jarbo's father's field recordings, I think that's very interesting, too. And it just sort of gives this theme of like Michael's own life and his gripes with humanity.
Yeah, and even in like the other songs, like they're definitely like the songs like Helpless Child, they're sort of also kind of relates to, also Michael's life because his mother wasn't really around for his development as a child, and so even his father, he never really like had any like authority or from
Yeah,
anyone, I guess.
I remember looking at some of the lyrics of Helpless Child, and I could tell there were some themes of motherhood being exuded a little bit in that song.
Oh, that's all over the place in birthing too. And the first track, The Healers, motherhood and birth and just parental themes are very common throughout. I think most of his discography, especially like the later half.
Mm. So yeah, he's still put I guess like talking about it on the new one. Yeah, I'll definitely look out for that then. And yeah, here. So there's also kind of a sub theme of that. It's kind of also relating to their lives. The loss of innocence, right? And we have the track here, Volcano, which talks about a girl and kind of going into her oh, and Zoom just finished converting my thing. All right. Anyways, sort of talking about her like sexual experiences and kind of showing that she that she's kind of like losing her innocence, I guess. Yeah, in a way. Do you guys have any thoughts on that track?
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite Swans tracks. It's definitely the one I've played the most. I think it's one of the most unique songs I've ever heard just because of the way it's so like cheerful and like poppy and fun. It sort of has like that, like Björk 90s dance pop vibe to it, but it's also really unsettling and like creepy, like the way like the drones and like the looping music. I saw someone on the subreddit describe it as the musical equivalent of holding back vomit, and I think that's a really really accurate description because like you can hear these weird looping noises and like it's a fun happy song and like her vocals like it just sounds like someone like she's holding back tears or something and she's just like really unhappy and it's just like you can tell how the music fits in with the song. I just think it's a really, really creepy song, but it's also fun. So I like that about it a lot.
Not to mention, it's a bit overtly minimalist, which helps with that juxtaposition.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I always loved Jarbo's vocals on that track, and she's more she yeah she's really good. What do you guys think about her like vocal style?
I think it's really interesting, and I think it's like stylized. Like you can see, like obviously with Young Yab Killers and from the live album Swans Are Dead, I Crawled, I think. You guys know that one. She absolutely knocks that out of the park with her screaming vocals. I think she just can do a lot, and her biggest merit in terms of music, I think, is the way she can play with her voice to create emotion. Like I said in this, like she sounds very like shaky and vulnerable while she sings, almost like she's performing but like holding back tears a little bit. And I just think that's really cool, that like deep kind of growly voice too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, this track is kind of like the most like unique track because it feels almost like out of place, but you know, it still continues the themes present in throughout soundtracks for the line. Like, what do you think? Like, well, obviously it's not intentional that like it's supposed to, but like, what do you think it like? I guess plays into like the like disorganized and like a film that you can't see, or yeah. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it's just like a misfit and like an album full of weird misfits too, and I think that's what makes it interesting. Like if you think about a movie, like even if it's a very dark and like heavy movie, like there are still quote unquote like happy upbeat scenes in it that may have happy upbeat music, which might clash with the rest of the like movie. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's very fitting, I believe.
Hmm. Yeah, and you guys want to play a little portion?
Yeah, let's throw it on.
Alrighty. Here, I'll just play a little section. Yeah, I love that because it also shows like, you know, what Tako was saying, like the like computerized like, or I guess like loops and reverse.
The drum machine most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a very twisted, well, okay, not very, but still twisted version of an underworld song, if you will.
Mm. Yeah,
So I don't know if you know Born Slippy Nux from the Train Spotting soundtrack. It kind of reminded me of that with that drum machine.
I haven't heard of that.
Boy, dog, boy, did on angel boy. Okay, no, let's sing it like that. I think Anna might know what I'm talking about.
I actually haven't seen Train Spotting, but like all of my friends have, so I get to hear about it everywhere, and I gotta watch it soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, this sound. I've heard lots of good things about the soundtrack, and that song in particular was just, it blew up when the movie came out. By the way, a year before this album came out, so I it wouldn't be too impossible to see Swans kind of also grabbing some of that influence from these electronic acts with their stuff around this time when, well, then they weren't really starting getting into electronic even around the Great Annihilator days, but still, I'd say with soundtracks, they definitely to some extent had the etherealness that some of these electronic acts were throwing into material, and Underworld were a good example of that.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that. I think another thing I'd like to add on about this, kind of going off what you were mentioning about like the electronics, is so the song "I Love You This Much" later on in this album also uses like the same sounds as this one. I don't know like how much you guys have listened to that one, but it has the same drone and the looping. It is basically like a reworking of Volcano. So that's really interesting, I think, and it kind of shows like this is a really good example of a song that was taken and spliced and recycled and collaged and basically just like fucked up thoroughly and turned into even weirder music with electronics. So I think that's a really good example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they also like recycle another like the first song. It's the copper disc is the first like part of the album, right? Or is it the silver disc? Anyways, I don't know.
It makes more sense for silver to be first. I don't know. I have to look it up.
Copper then silver.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like the first song, like Red Velvet Corridor, and then it's Red Velvet Wound as the first song on silver.
Red Velvet Wound is another really weird one too. That was one that I never was really able to figure out.
Yeah, they sound the same, but there's something like wrong with it. I don't know.
Yeah, more like really creepy Jarbo vocals on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, like here we'll play the sound in a bit, but like what do you think like the world, like if you had to describe the world of soundtracks for Vine, like how would you do it?
I would say, so this is just a description that I've heard a little bit. I don't remember if Gira himself ever mentioned this, but I think especially with this song Helpless Child, like it has this sort of theme of like birthing, like obviously when you look at the lyrics, rebirth, life, living, death, kind of these general themes in Swans, and you can see like here lyrically it explores like motherhood, human relations, religion, God, birth, just all this good weird stuff to do with humans, and I think he conveys it in this super disorienting and kind of at times very depressing and dark, heavy ways. So that's what I'd have to say if I could summarize it at least.
Taka, do you have any thoughts on that question?
I'd say connecting to the whole memories analogy that I came up with earlier definitely feels like a very disorderly brain or mind. Like I can sense the disorder happening here with this entire album.
Yeah, I always like there was this like YouTube comment on one of the songs. It's like I played this album entirely for my mom, and she described it, or not I didn't play it for my mom, but they played it for their mom, and they described it as like entering hell. And
that's perfect. Actually, I don't know if you guys have ever seen or heard of The Caretaker, Everything Everywhere at the End of Time. I'd say I can kind of compare it to that, like the degradation, the confusion, like the mental. Like I'd say if there was one album / series of albums I could kind of compare that world to.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
I'd say if we're gonna really talk about like the themes of hell in a way, I guess it's more of an atmospheric vibe when it comes to it, but Heresy by Lustmord comes to mind.
Hmm.
It's foreboding. Some of what's on soundtracks does have the same deep okay, I can't say foreboding again. It has the eeriness, let's say, of Heresy, which I mentioned actually in the Eno episode a while back. Or was it Paradise Disowned? Whatever. That doesn't matter. I think I did. Its thing basically samples cave and volcano sounds like from deep underground. And in a way, soundtracks does also have that sort of field recording aspect going on, as we said earlier.
Yeah, it's almost like yeah, like referencing that again. Like I remember I think we talked about like the comparisons like ambient music and harsh noise. Like in harsh noise, like there are places in the world in that world where if you like stand there, you're gonna die, or like and it's about like adapting in harsh noise like albums, right? Like I can sit here or I can sit there, and we kind of described like ambient 4 as like there's something wrong about it, but like they're all like it they're still like guiding you as like an ambient album like should, but it's just through a dangerous like environment, right?
Yeah, like what was it? Captain Mondo said, I think, or was it Fig?
I don't know. Well, what is it? I
It was
know.
either one of them, or maybe you said it. Whatever. It definitely does feel like that. There, in a way, this album doesn't go like full on into one particular subgenre, say drone or just heavy ambient noise. No, it's got a little bit of everything, and it's kind of smooths out the trail in a way. That's why it's a good starter album when it comes to drone music.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
think this was actually my intro to drone music, actually, come to think of it. This may have been like the very first like drone adjacent album I ever listened to. So I do think it was a good intro because it doesn't like dump you into the deep end like I think Stars of the Lid kind of does sometimes with some of their longer tracks, or like Natural Snow Buildings, for example. Like it's nothing really like that. It's not that intense, but it does kind of like drop you in slowly, which kind of has like the same thing of like these themes of like going in and out of worlds, in and out of states of consciousness. I think it's very interesting, very cool role in drone music to me.
Don't get me started on Natural Snow Buildings. I went through
I've gotten so into them lately. Yeah, for sure.
Daughter. I went through Daughter of Darkness in one day, and that's something I'm never
Oh,
gonna do
wow.
again. So,
I
no.
That one
yeah,
took me a few days.
I'm scared of
I
natural.
decided to so-called do it in one sitting. That didn't work out well for me.
You're a trooper.
The problem is that album, it feels too samey with some tracks. Like I can
Yeah, I just agree
feel
with that.
I can feel the improvisation happen. Okay, let me not laugh here. I can feel the improvisation happening in that album. But it just doesn't feel too improvising. Now with Soundtracks for the Blind, you have all sorts of different concepts all packed into a significantly shorter 2 hours.
2 hours.
How amazing is that?
Yeah,
And it's not
Short
even my
little
favorite
2-hour
Swans album.
album.
yeah, I always see like that. That's another like Stars in the Lid, Natural Snow Buildings. Like I just see like these like people talk about it, and they're saying it's like masterpieces, and I'm like I'm scared. Like this is like 8 hours of my life. Like, and I have to choose wisely. But maybe yeah. Do you guys have any like starter albums for Natural Snow Buildings?
For Natural Snow
They're so
Buildings,
hard to like get. Like they're not the kind of band you simply check out, but like at the same time you can do it at your own pace. Like I definitely did not listen to Daughter of Darkness in one sitting. Like I think I listened to the discs like separately. It's just kind of easier to appreciate. I think if you're more into like tribal ambient, Night Coercion and the Company of Witches would be a really good one. I think that's my favorite by them, actually. It's not quite as long. It does have a few quite long tracks, but the first few songs I think are a pretty cool intro to them. Also, yeah, there are definitely like a lot of good tracks you could start with, like Carnal Flowers on Daughter of Darkness. I would recommend. I think that's the best one on there, and it's a great like kind of peaceful ambient starter track to get into, and then just kind of like explore from there. Really.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
As for some starter albums from them, I've heard. Okay, I've only really heard "Daughter of Darkness." That's the only one I've heard in full. But I myself have heard good things about "The Winter Ray" and "The Dance of the Moon and Sun." So do consider checking those out if you want like some generally good albums to go.
I gotta hear Dance of the Moon and Sun. That's like the one that I have heard actually like the best things about. Definitely like still an intimidating listen, but I'm hoping to hear that one soon.
It's definitely much more compact at just like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's about as long as this album, really.
Yeah, how do you guys go? Like, I guess another topic we can go. Like, how do you guys go into like listening to soundtracks for the blind? Like,
So I definitely have to be in like the right mood to listen to this one, just because like we've said, it's really really heavy and like draining, and kind of like listening to it just makes me feel like I have like a 105-degree fever and I'm just like fading in and out of consciousness, and I feel very very drained by the time it's over, like both because of how colossal the album is and because of like the theme. So I kind of have to be in a right mood to listen to it, if that makes sense. Like, and I wouldn't say that with like most of my other like favorite albums, even ones that are very like weird and atmospheric that I'm into. Like, they don't really like take the same toll on me. I'd say this is very very powerful stuff.
Well, for me, when I was re-listening to it, to be honest, okay. Generally, I'm a bit of a thick-skinned kind of guy when it comes to music, which is why I was able to get into harsh noise relatively easily. But when I went through this album again after like years of basically putting it off, it definitely felt a little different. I could definitely realize some of the beauty in it, and it's definitely way higher than a B tier in my tier list from now on, for sure. It's definitely gonna be way higher than B tier. Maybe I'm speaking too much in tier list terms, but I went through this when I was playing Fortnite last night.
oh,
And let's just say it was pretty fucking good background music, especially
So-
the shoegazy songs in particular. I really like.
so did you get any victory royales?
I did end up getting a victory royale.
There you go.
See.
Well, this album did bless me in a way. I ended up throwing like 3 songs from there into a shoegaze playlist. The Blood section was definitely one of them, and I also threw in Helpless Child because that last section also felt pretty decently shoegazy enough for me to just throw it into my playlist. So
Blood Section is a really good one too. That really intense guitar is super cool to me.
Yeah,
very much.
yeah, and we you guys want to play like a track maybe?
Let's do another one, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna play a lot of them. Yeah. So we're doing Helpless Child, right? And yeah, like, why?
So I think this is the most like Swans track on the album. Like, it's the most sort of like thematically iconic one. Like, not only is it one of their most like popular and beloved songs, I think it's the most like indicative of the direction that they would later go with their
Yeah.
post-rock stuff. Like if you consider the tracks from The Seer to Be Kind and The Glowing Man, especially the longer ones, they have this consistent theme of like sort of like building and building and building and like just more and more percussion, and it's a sort of like trance like meditative thing, and then by the end it's like so loud and so powerful, and you just feel like you're being like raptured by God listening to it at the end. And I think that's what they have at Helpless Child, and it's really like their first time kind of like doing that at a studio album. So I think it's a very important song just in the Swans catalog to like represent their sound as a whole.
Yeah, definitely like shows what they would do later down the line. And yeah, like Tako, do you have anything to add?
I definitely agree with what my homie Anna said. It definitely it starts off very calm, a bit in the neo folk side, if you will, reminiscent of their albums before this, and then it starts getting progressively heavier, and then it just goes all out bombastic with the shoegazy stuff that I mentioned earlier. Maybe I'm putting too much gusto into it, but that's the amount of gusto that they also put into this.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very intense and powerful. And like, there have been times where I was listening to this where I just got like super emotional too. Like, not just because of the lyrics, but because of like, you can just feel like vulnerability and like anger and emotion just like seeping through all the instruments on here. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
In a way, it really, really reminds me of Sleep by Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, I can see that. It is. It's very Godspeed You Black Emperor. I think the whole like vibe. Same with like the other longer songs on here, like The Sound. I
Yeah,
think
The
kind
Sound.
of continue in a similar vein.
The Final Sacrifice may be a little bit too minimalist and strange to really compare it, but it definitely also should be mentioned.
Yeah.
I guess the calmer parts and how they twist it. I also checked and it's silver then copper. And I feel copper kind of tends to twist some themes from the silver side and just make it a little bit weirder. Like what happened with Volcano, and what's that other song you mentioned, Anna?
Which one?
It was
The one that just
Oh, I Love You This Much.
yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
one. That's sort of a recurring theme in the copper side, if you will.
And yeah, you guys wait, so what part do you want to play specifically? It's kind of it's a very long song.
The build up, Anna said, I think.
Yeah, well, the build up is like the whole song pretty much. So I was a little too vague with that, but like definitely maybe we could play like part of the beginning where it begins to go like up, and then like at the end when it's all just like that crashing and that percussion and that powerful guitar.
Maybe
Okay.
when you start singing, then maybe.
All right. Yeah, let's play the start and then
Acapella, yeah.
wait, what's up? Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah, we'll play the start and yeah, we'll go from there, I guess.
All right.
Oh yeah, let me know when you wanna jump to the end.
You want to roll to the end?
Yeah, let's
Got
go.
your loser, yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Here, let's play maybe like here. You guys think that would be good? Like 4:14.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that song is it feels like throughout the track you're like levitating slowly and slowly. I really like that like um element there and very reminiscent of, To Be Kind, obviously, in many ways.
Not gonna lie, this whole song already feels kind of relatable because it feels like it's telling the end of something in a way with that build up towards the end. And for me, I think that kind of connects with my current experience right now with school. Like literally, this coming week's my last week of school, and the seniors here are gonna be graduating, and it feels like some feeling of loss that's happening here that I think
Mm.
this song manages to capture. That
Oh
that the
yeah, I
first
remember when I graduated high school, it was definitely like that. It was a very like powerful, emotional experience. I can understand that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad that seeing these people just kind of fade away depending on where.
Yeah.
I think the album really captures that very well.
Yeah, it's apocalyptic, I'd say, if I could sum it up in one word.
I mean, that's exactly what neo folk is supposed to be. It does have those neo folk influences, so
Yeah.
they call it apocalyptic folk in some corners.
Yeah, and really, like, what do you guys think about the lyrics um of
So I think
it?
the lyrics definitely like they're very interesting. Like you can see these sort of like themes of like motherhood, and I think here it seems to be told from the perspective of like a fetus in the womb almost. Like if you look at these lyrics, like I'll hide myself deep inside your crimson pool, the muddy water runs between your folds, the
Mhm.
children were suffocating in your damp cave. I think that's very obviously alluding to a womb, and then even more obvious themes of motherhood, like now you be the only child, I'll suck on your breast. So I think that's very interesting, and like obviously when we compare it with Mr. Jira's mommy issues, I think it's
Mhm.
really interesting too, and sort of vulnerable and personal to him.
Yeah, because his mother was like, I mean, we already said this, like, absent in his development. So yeah, like, and this song kind of connects to here, I wrote it down. It kind of connects to like also like the sound and then empathy, those
Yeah.
tracks where it's kind of like, this is kind of like the abuse in a way, and then the sound is like forgiveness, and then like empathy is like the lack of empathy, I guess, for his mother or whatever, like, in a way. So yeah, I think those are like probably like the three like big like tracks that kind of make the album like what it is, honestly. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Animus is another standout too, kind of the last song on the first disc. Very similar, these like powerful themes, this long build up, these sort of like nihilistic but also like sort of emotionally moving lyrics.
Hmm.
And like they're of course the ones that have like Michael Gira singing and his like traditional song. Like a lot of the vocals in the other tracks are like Jarbo or field recordings or just like other like weird stuff that he's doing. So these are the more like traditional Swans things. And I'd say they're like the sort of like the main courses of the album if you think of like the little tracks as like side dishes and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Oh shoot, I dropped my phone. Yeah. um yeah, like, what are your guys' favorite lyrics throughout soundtracks for the wild?
Helpless Child and Volcano were definitely up there for me. And then Blood Section with how weird. Well, okay, definitely the not Blood Section. I'm tripping. The Final Sacrifice, I meant. That one felt super duper funky. And Hypo Girl too. That one was also hella funky.
Oh
Especially
yeah, her vocals on that one, so weird. Love
they're
it.
so witchy. It's like she's about to cast a spell on you.
Exactly, yeah. All right, if we're gonna talk about lyrics, I absolutely have to mention All Lined Up. I think that is like the weirdest song. It is so terrifying. Like he's describing some sort of like, I don't know if we can like pull the lyrics up or anything.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
wish we
can do
could
it.
have, but he's describing like a sort of like Holocaust type situation where he's like, I see them all lined up, describing like a bunch of people being murdered and him basically like taking this gleeful enjoyment. Yeah, there they are. Their blood is shining in the sun, their wounds are powdered with white salt. He's like describing like a mass slaughter pretty much, and like the way he does it, like it's not just the lyrics which are scary, it's like his vocals themselves, like that very, very weird cadence with like the sing-songy kind of processed vocals. I think lyrically that's like one of the most mind-blowing things I've heard from Swans and just like in general. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't think. It's the one. It's the one when Jarbo in like a younger version of Jarbo. I'm pretty sure that's what it's supposed to be.
Beautiful Days, yeah,
Yeah,
her
I
looped like vocals.
yeah, that one, but not like those lyrics. But I really like the spoken word piece at the end because it also like I think that's probably the one that shows the most of like the degradation of a person, sort of like you know like doing like very like nasty things to someone across like the phone, and I think it's like you know really it's just really like the picture it paints is just really like interesting, I guess. And
The way it segues into Volcano too, which is the next track, like
yeah,
sort of sets up the theme of like the sexual degradation and like the almost like feminist themes of like women being taken advantage of and sexual positions. And I just think it's really interesting the way like he uses these field recordings and splices them up with like lyrics to create consistent themes and like take you through all these worlds and like ideas. It's just really cool.
yeah. And I guess it's sort of like to like question like we were talking about like feminism. It's not like a new thing, but it's like it's always around, right? Today. And do you guys think this album feels current in our era of music now?
It most definitely feels current. Not for mainstream music, of course,
Yeah.
because this is fucking Swans. What are you talking about? Okay. But with regard to more underground and experimental forms of music, it definitely is very current. And it definitely holds a major influence on a lot of up and coming artists. Swans themselves really hit gold with this one, let's say. And that gold led to a gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I'm basically trying to get at with these up and coming artists. I guess they're like a lot. I see a lot of newer ambient acts kind of taking some inspo from albums like this, really. And as for like Swans themselves within their own discography, it gave them some basis for their own brand of post rock. And even though Gira tends to go more batshit with the post reunion albums, like he sounds like a maniac on some of the songs on there. Like on the title track for this year where he goes, "The coal in my mouth, the coal in my mouth." He turns into his own character. He loses his seriousness from the pre-breakup albums. So I think it helped him loosen up.
Yeah, speaking of like ambient like artists, like I actually think like this album has a lot of like similarities to that one Residents album, Meet the Residents.
Oh yeah, I can see that with like the very, very weird eclectic mix of noises and songs and vocal styles.
Yes, I've heard it a couple times before. Not enough to say that I can remember everything on there. I can't remember the rendition of Boots they did on there though, and maybe Rest Area, which is like the one weird classical composition they decided to do. Which is also the only bolded song on the album on Rate Your Music.
Yeah, I love that album. It's really good, but it's also a little racist. But we don't have to talk about that.
You
Yeah.
guys ever heard anything by Nurse with Wound, A Sucked Orange? If you know about that album, I would
I'm aware.
recommend that
I'm
if you're
aware of
into
that.
it.
I'm aware of that album, and I've been wanting to get into Nurse with Wound's discography for a good while now. You have no idea. I remember when I heard Six Mock Projections a while back from the
Yeah.
very first album. It was industrial rock, but not in the way that you think. It sounded very twisted. The guitars sounded possessed on that song. It felt like a two-man band going insane, which I think it actually was at the time,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, I've never heard of Nurse with Wound. So they're kind of
I
like
will
a
say that it's like similar sonically, but it's kind of similar in the way that it's so eclectic and weird and creepy, and they do all these things with like vocals and samples and stuff. So I definitely would like compare that whole experience to it.
Actually, Audrey, if you remember well from the Brian Eno episode, I did mention those guys with regard to Ambient 4.
Oh, really? Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I brought him up after Captain Mondo said something about industrial influences and whatnot with that album in particular. So there's also some of that happening on soundtracks here, and I'd say Nurse with Wound captures the more extreme side of the feels that this album is trying to accomplish. And also, not to make it sound like a self-promo here, but I do have Hamatopy to Marie uploaded on SoundCloud, well at least 3/4 of it. So if you are interested, I might as well drop that in there as a recommendation for anybody who likes this album.
So yeah, you answered the prompt there. Yeah.
On behalf of let's say.
Yeah. Let's see. Where can we go with this?
What are some other good albums though that would capture that? Because Nurse with Wound is more abrasive, but maybe more on the softer end. I'm not really sure if Stars of the Lid really does that.
I did mention Everywhere at the End of Time. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, that's more of like a series of albums you gotta get into, but I think that's kind of the closest. And like, I listened to those albums for the first time around the same time I heard Soundtracks for the Blind for the first time, and like the comparison, just like this very like weird descent into madness, into and out of states of madness too, because like with those albums, like obviously what they are is they're supposed to be a representation of a person with dementia, like slowly losing touch with reality, and like actually like a very, very sad and emotionally moving series of albums. And I think it can kind of be similar in that like they'll have some songs in the middle of like that dementia ridden like crazy drone ambient thing that are like normal or like more reminiscent of like the early like old 1920s like recorded sounds, because they're supposed to symbolize like coming back to the surface, like when people who are almost like dying of dementia have these like phases where they like basically gain awareness back. And I think that can kind of be compared with some of the songs and ideas in Swans and Soundtracks for the Blind especially.
It kind of feels like the way that like the volcano my computer is low on, or my laptop's low on battery. Anyways, I was saying.
Go ahead and feel free to put the charger in there. I wanted to say something about another recommendation.
Yeah. Go for it.
Personally, I think if you want something weirder than this, more on the collage aspect in a way. I'd say not available by the Resident. Does a good job at that. It's sort of all over the place when it comes to the collage stuff. Even though it's not really that much of a collage album, it feels very collagey in a way. And then their album Eskimo, which I also like to call the Inuit album for less offensive purposes, also does cover more of an ambient soundscape that I think some people would enjoy. And not to mention the entire album, the Inuit album is basically based on the liner notes. There's a story in there that you need to read while you're listening to the music, and when combined together, it becomes one giant satire of how many Westerners interpret the Inuit peoples of Northern America. Sort of like sort of as a stereotype. They make fun of that stereotype.
Yeah, the Residents does that a lot. Yeah, it's yeah. Um yeah, I was just gonna say like finishing my point like uh with the caretaker like definitely like the way that like Volcano is like positioned in the album like it's almost like what you were describing like kind of like jumping like back into reality in like some of the like
Yeah.
stage, but like it's not like similar in that like you're jumping into like reality, but like it's like very like I guess I don't know, it's a very sudden change. And
Yeah.
um yeah, do we have anything else to say?
I'd say, yeah, just for like comparison albums, I would definitely suggest A Sucked Orange by Nurse Wifoon. That's definitely like the weirdest collage style album. There are obviously all sorts of drone albums that you could even compare like some aspects of this to, which are very like weird. Trying to think, definitely Natural Snow Buildings. I would recommend to anyone who is interested in like the more ambient side of things to this. Same with Time Machines by Coil. That one leans like really, really hard into like drone and ambient and like weird repetitive trance like stuff.
Yeah, takes it to a more psychedelic direction because they were literally on drugs when they recorded that album.
Yeah, like all the song titles are named after like the drugs they were doing too. Like they weren't subtle with that one. It's a really good album.
Absolutely. And I remember that was the first ever Coil album I ever actually listened
Oh my god, yeah. No, this was the first ever Swans album I ever listened to in full too, which is funny, and it's my favorite today.
for me, Time Machines was just like a really weird introduction to drone. I think I heard it before soundtracks in full. Really, I remember I used to put this on every time I went to sleep, and this was it was super soothing. They basically lulled me to sleep. It wasn't a lullaby sort of thing. It sort of hypnotized me into sleeping. That's exactly what a lot of drone music and this album also likes to do in particular.
Yeah, the first time I actually listened to both albums, Time Machines and Soundtracks for the Blind, I had well, I'd actually taken an edible, which wasn't like the best choice, but I do think it really like immersed me in the experience and like helped me appreciate like the more trance like elements. I think I can definitely relate to what you're saying about it being like a meditative and sort of like relaxing experience. It just feels like you're melting into the album, just like giving yourself into the music, and I think that's really, really cool.
It's like you're becoming the shrooms.
Yeah, I guess yeah, another one I'll just throw it out there. I also think this album also is similar to 20 Jazz Funk Greats by Throbbing Gristle.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like just like sort of like especially the weird vocals on that one. definitely is something that they're similar in, and also just the dark ambient stuff throughout that.
Yeah. If we're talking Throbbing Gristle, I'd say like even with their songs from other albums like Hamburger Lady, you know, with the iconic really, really weird processed vocals, it sounds kind of like he's like speaking into a fan. Like that's very similar to the vocals in All Lined Up for me too.
Wasn't that one on the third and final report?
Yeah. I
Yes,
haven't listened to that full album, but I do
I'd
really
say
like Hamburger Lady.
that is a better recommendation than 20 Jazz Funk Greats, because 20 Jazz Funk Greats is great, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit, in a way, it's a little bit too experimental if you're focusing more on the drone side of things. Third and final report really does a better job when it comes to that. And not to mention, it's super industrial, but industrial in a suave sense. It's not harsh like Einstürzende Neubauten, where it's power tools with Blixabarca shouting in your ear, "Stay up, Berlin!" Not like that.
Yeah.
It's not jump scary stuff. It's creepier stuff. It's like Nurse with Wound. Some of those British industrial acts from the late 70s and early 80s, except White House, they're a little bit too noisy. Really focused on the darker side of industrial music. Lust Ward, Nurse with Wound, Throbbing Gristle, all great examples.
Yeah, Coil too, for sure. And like if you think about how many of them were connected, like obviously like the connection between Throbbing Gristle and Coil, like John Balance was a fan of Throbbing Gristle, which is how he met the producer in the first place. And then they went on to do some work with Nurse with Wound. I don't remember their exact connection, but they all like knew each other and they were exchanging these ideas and these incredibly groundbreaking, boundary pushing experiments into what music could be and like what music can make you feel, really. And I just think that's kind of similar to what Michael Gira was like trying to do here. Like this album, it's an outlier among all of Swans stuff. Like even at the beginning, we saw like you can kind of cut their studio records into these clean eras of like, here's the gothic rock stuff, here's the no wave stuff, here's like the post rock stuff. And this is just like none of the above, really. It's just like their weird, like final boundary pushing record. And that's what I like about it so much. It's just very unique to me.
I feel like this was the final push in their pre-breakup post-rock material, starting with White Light from the Mouth of Infinity. Going from that to soundtracks, this was like the last step in Swans' evolution cycle before they broke up.
Yeah, and we were talking. Yeah,
it's like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't been talking about like their new stuff, like the post rock, you know, the big sound, how Michael was describing it, right? And yeah, how do you think this one impacted the stuff they would create later?
Like I mentioned earlier, it definitely loosened up Gira a bit, but it sounds so completely different from the post reunion material. Like the post reunion material, like I said, it's more bombastic. It's relatively less serious. And like I said, Gira basically screeching like, "They're calling my mouth," again with the spear stuff. And your name is fuck.
I love that.
Your name is fuck. That part from Toussaint Louverture, yeah, that really goes to show that he's become a kid again. He's managed to embrace that childish creativity. It's not childish in a bad way, but I'm sure you understand how he's feeling curious in a way with some, as everything after my father will guide me up a rope to the sky, because that one felt a little bit too serious compared to the rest of the albums. But To Be Kind and This Year, especially, were kind of unserious. Also, can't forget the exploding butthole cover art he commissioned for This Year.
Yeah.
Which, again, demonstrates how childish he was at this point during his career as a musician. But it goes to show his creativity. And if it wasn't for soundtracks, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier too, like we can see like these sort of like proto trilogy sounds in Helpless Child, and the sound like I think he would most definitely take inspiration from like this work to develop like that sound that he became loved for and like achieved like his first major commercial success. Like we don't see as much of it on My Father Guide Me Up a Real Sky, but just in like this year, even with the title track, like they have like that theme of like this building and building and building up that started really in soundtracks, and it just like all kind of comes from there. And I think he just got a lot of his ideas, and it was a hugely ambitious and exhausting project for him too, that kind of like helped him grow as a person. I just think so much of Swans' history is like built around like Michael's personal history too, and like his growth, his development, his inspirations, him constantly challenging himself and learning things. And I just think that's really cool too.
True that. Actually, not true. Not just true that. Truth nuke.
Truth Nuke. 5 big booms.
Yep. And yeah, you guys want to play a final track?
Let's do the blood section. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember that's what we were gonna
The
play.
shoegaze one.
Yes. Never go wrong with shoegaze, you know.
Yeah, and this will be the the final track. Like, go listen to Birthing after this. After you watch this, it comes out today as I upload this. So yeah, I'm gonna be listening to it. So after this,
It's so good. It's really phenomenal. My favorites are I think The Merge is probably my favorite post trilogy Swans track. It's mind blowing.
So
I
yeah,
shall have take a listen myself and see. Oh, I have to see if I can stay up later for that. But
yeah. Wait, what time is it for you guys?
It's
It is
9 o'clock.
8:50. 9
Okay.
o'clock, yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be 2 hours of birthing.
Oh, okay,
It's
because
gonna
you guys
be
are on the East Coast. I'm on the West.
It's gonna be a bit painful. I'm not gonna lie. But,
It flies right by. It really does. Like I was on the edge of my seat for so many of those tracks. I think Red Yellow is another standout from there. Really cool stuff.
all right.
All right. Well, yeah. I'll be listening with those, in mind. Yeah. And yeah, let's play it, right?
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Let's play it. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys for
Killed it
watching.
on those air drums down there.
Oh wait, sorry. What did you say? Someone was.
Killed it on those air drums.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you guys for showing up. And yeah, the next episode, it might, I don't know. I'm still planning with people for Shushu knife play by Shushu.
Actually, Anna, would you be interested in joining that one?
Yeah, I actually haven't heard that one, but yeah, I totally I can listen to it. I've only heard A Promise and Girl with Basket of Fruit by Shushu actually. But
Okay.
I can do a deep dive. Like I got some gaps in my album listening conquest.
I got you some recommended art. Is it still recording?
It's still recording. Okay, I'm just gonna say one last thing, or it's gonna be Weezer the Blue Album by Weezer, but it's not gonna be just hosted by me. It's gonna be hosted by a good friend of mine that loves Weezer. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys, next time. Goodbye. And cut.